Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the darkest timeline. What have we got for you this week? Sleep. Sleep's important, but how important? That is the question. Buying tickets for the cinema. Yes, I know, it's riveting. Going to the park in 2024 versus going to the park in the 1980s. TV, movies, and computer games, all in this episode. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review, wherever you can. And as always, share the podcast around. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the darkest timeline. Hello. How you doing? Oh, I'm always in a very awkward position. Can I move this and this? Shuffly shuffle. How's that? Can you hear me now? What is that saying about the best laid plans? I find Mondays these days are very much surrounding getting to this point. But the plan is always to get to this point probably 2 hours earlier than I do. So much so that I even considered recording a podcast last night to get like that much further ahead. Worked on the principle I didn't think that there would be much happening today that would necessitate. Yeah, that sounds like a real word. Needing to wait until this point in time, but you never know. You wouldn't want the most exciting thing in the world to happen on a Monday and be like, damn it, I'm gonna have to wait a whole week. So yeah, how are you? How are you doing? How's your week been? I mean, it's like Monday, but you know. Oh, wrong list. Cracking start. Today's a bit of a higgledy-piggledy one. Bits and bobs to talk about. TV, which is interesting. Movies. And then, yeah, like a little bit of game stuff. More talking about game technology, let's say. And leave that at that. So, first thing on my list starts with a kind of a story. Goes back to me. I can't tell you what age. I would say 14 at the youngest, 15 probably more likely, and 16 being maybe too late, possibly. Every child knows that time where their parent basically stops telling them to go to bed. And it's either a conversation or it's just a thing that happens. One day your parent doesn't say, it's this time, go to bed. And you realise it's like a first point in time where you yourself have to make a decision around your life. I remember there was a conversation, I think it was along the lines of me not going to bed and then getting so far through the night and being like, I guess I should just go to bed. And And then having a conversation the next day, I was like, you didn't tell me to go to bed. You didn't come and say, like, to go to bed or night or anything like that. And then the conversation was, well, you're this age now, and if at this age you can't decide what time you need to go to bed, if you don't know what time you need to go to bed, then there's no hope for you. Which was very much a common phrase in my existence. So, early on in the process, there was this sort of realization of this dual world, this dual existence, the existence of, I want to stay up, versus, I need to be able to function. And the need to be able to function was just more around, well, I can just push through. So if I want to stay up more, then I just have to push through the next day. And ultimately, that led me down a particular path, that path of, partying hard for entire weekends, working for, what did I used to work? It was like, I think it'd be like 56 hours, no sleep. I used to work, like it was a normal thing to do, normal thing for a human being to do, and for what was ultimately a pittance. It wasn't like I was, raking it in, and that was sort of the very last part of my teens, which, unfortunately, in some ways, 19 is still a teenager, even though you're an adult. So, go figure. So I would say, I was an adult, but still that sort of area. And when you're working for 56 hours, straight with no sleep or rest or whatever, you then work out that you can party for 56 hours with no sleep or rest or whatever. Or a little bit of shut eye here and there. I remember the days of going out, going to a party, after going out, going to an after party, going to that then turning into like a day session, then going out in the night, and sometimes rinse and repeat sort of thing. And that being my sort of existence for X amount of time, then that transformed into, I think there was a point in time, sort of like 2 or 3 years, where if you added up the amount of sleep I'd had in those years, it wouldn't be enough to fill like 6 months worth of sleep over the space of like 3 years. And then things changed. It's that thing, isn't it? You can't stay young forever. But I was still young. And I reached a point where certain nights I'd be up till 4, get up at 7, go to work. Other nights, like the next night, it'd be like up till like 2, 3. Get up at 7, go to work. So much so that was normal. A few years down the line, if I went to bed before 4 o'clock in the morning, and got up for work at 7, half 7, 8, whatever, there was something wrong, because that was my life at that time, and that was for many years. And then things really changed. No surprises around the time of being a parent, becoming a parent, and being like, well, I can't do this and this and this and this and this. And this was stay up until silly o'clock and still function the next day as a parent, because obviously being a parent's more demanding on your body and your mind. Round about the same time, you start hearing things about like not getting enough sleep leads to X, not getting enough sleep leads to Y. Alzheimer's connections and, cancers and things like that. Then you've got the fact that like round about this sort of time, I was starting down my, what I would call fitness journey, because honestly, I don't know what else I would call it. And sleep starts ramping its way up through the things that are necessary. So going from what was a steady 2 o'clock bedtime, 2 o'clock turns into 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock turns into 12:30. 12:30 turns into 12. Over the space of, 6 to 10 years. And my thing was always the same. If I play computer games till 2 o'clock in the morning and go to bed, that's 5 hours sleep. I think that was the thing at that time. It's probably one of the ones that rings out. Over the last few years, it's very much my evenings are very routine now. At basically 12 o'clock on the button, I stop whatever it is I'm doing, let the dog out to go to the toilet, get the dog in, get the dog sorted, go, brush teeth, read a book. Whilst I'm doing all of these things, get ready for bed, go to bed, and I step into bed the same time every day. That is that. Simple. Over the last couple of weeks, something's changed. And whereas previously I've been like, well, I have to stay up till 12 o'clock for these reasons. More recently, I've been like, well, if I'm getting into bed at 12:30, I'm not really going to bed at 12. I'm losing half an hour's sleep there. And if I get into bed, that bit, even if it's 15 minutes can make a big difference, blah, 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 blah. So I was trying to address that. So I started like 11:45. I'll get that extra 15 minutes out of it. But then, like I say, something happened. Recently, I've been getting to sort of 10 to 11 has been a frequent one. So 10 to 11 and been like, can I please just go to bed? Please just let me go to bed. I need to go to bed. And like I say, there are these variety of different things where I look at, if I send the dog out to go to the toilet an hour earlier, means he's going to be awake an hour earlier. There was a point the other day where I went to bed early for X number of reasons, the majority of which I don't necessarily need to go into. I went to bed early and woke up at 10 to 6, wide awake, raring to go. Now, that is not the plan. I work on the principle that 10 to 6 is nothing. It's worth nothing to me on a Saturday morning. There are days, I will hold my hands up and say there are days where if I woke up at 10 to 6, raring to go, ready and raring to go, there are days that would make a big difference. And I would actually appreciate it. I'd be like, yeah, I can work with this. But 10 to 6 on a Saturday morning, no good to me, I'm afraid. So, I've had this whole, just this need, this this drive, this need to go to bed. The weird thing is that there is a part of me that's still 19 years old and is saying to the part of me that's, 43 going on 63, what are you doing, old man? You're letting us down. We're missing the party. Because there is still that part, the part in me that's still trying to get to that party. It's a very difficult thing to deal with. Because I'm like, I agree with that part of me that wants to keep going. I agree with that part of me that wants to stay up. I agree. I'm missing out on these chunks of time, like 11 o'clock. An 11 o'clock bedtime is 1 hour less of doing the things I want to do. It's 1 hour more, and this is maybe a weird way of looking at it, but it's a 1 hour more that my life has stolen from me. And what I mean by that is all the things that you don't want to have to do. There's very few people out there that are like ready and raring to go to work. I populate my life with things that I don't especially want to have to do. Time spent running is time away from not running, etc. But it does feel like giving up, like giving over an extra hour. There's a theory that an hour before 12 is worth 2 after, and honestly, I would appreciate those 2 hours after. But am I prepared to pay the toll? One of my fears is that for some random reason I get into a situation where I'm like, oh, there's a party happening, or there's a night happening, or one of these things that we used to do a while ago, where you all get together in the same place at the same time and socialise. And my fear is that I would be the one that's at 10 o'clock going like, oh, guys, getting a bit late, isn't it? Should we wrap this one up? Yeah. I've been planning out a couple of birthday celebrations over the last few days, and one of my core things for planning these birthday celebrations is, but I don't want to get too tired because I want to enjoy the time, so I don't want to get too tired. Oh my word! What has happened? What's happened to me? I'm an old man now. Spoilers for later, but I went to the cinema the other day. I took a collection of children to the cinema. But we'll talk about that in a bit. What we will talk about is me getting absolutely reamed at the cinema. And it's not... I need to get this out at the start because I know how it will sound, and I will address the elephant right here and now. This isn't how I was made to feel by the other person in this situation or the situation. This was how I was made to feel by myself. So I want to get that out front. So I've got four children to take to the cinema. 3 of those 4 children have a cinema voucher that their nana very kindly bought them for Christmas. It will pay for them to go to the cinema. Myself and the other child involved would need tickets, and I was going to buy those tickets. The problem with the voucher is the voucher cannot be used in any way, shape or form unless you are in the cinema. I've talked about this before, I am sure, because it's possibly one of the more baffling things ever. So, I pick a particular point in time to go to cinema. I've looked at screens, times, seats, etc. to make sure that I'm not wasting my time in going, and off I pop. I get there, I go in, and I'm like, hi, I'd like to buy some tickets for a showing of a film that is on in 2 hours' time. I would like 5 tickets for this film, and I would like to use this voucher to pay for 3 of the 5 tickets. I will pay for the other 2 separately. Now, I personally felt that was reasonably well explained. Often in situations, I will over-explain myself to make the situation go quicker. So, when you go to the cinema, you get the option, like you do on the app, you get the option to pick your seats. They show you the screen and they're like, which seats do you want? And you go, I want the cheap ones, give me the cheap ones. The person who served me at this point in time turned the screen away from me. Which at the time I didn't think too much of, other than I noted they'd turned the screen away, and I was like, maybe it's part of the processing. So they were like, right, okay, there's 3 for this. I gave them the voucher. They were like, right, here's a receipt to say there's nothing left on the voucher. I said, okay, that's fine. They were like, did you say you had another voucher? I was like, no, I want to pay for the rest. Whatever's remaining, I will pay. And they were like, oh, it's this much. And I was like, oh, yeah, because that's the other thing. If you book online, the price is a certain amount. If you buy in store, as it's referred to, they add £1 to all tickets. So the whole trip was going to cost me a £5 more anyway. When they told me how much was left to pay, I was like, well, I know roughly what was on the voucher. And that seems like a lot left to pay. There's something strange there. Then I'm like, which part of this process do I get to pick my seats? Because all of this price is presumably determined on the cheap seats. They're like, right, it's, this much left to pay. I was like, okay, I'll pay that. Still expecting that they were like, right, which seats do you want? Because you've paid the lowest amount, so you now just get to pick from these seats. But there was a part of me that knew that part of the process had passed. Next thing, they were like, right, there's your tickets. And there you go. Now, here was the point. And I often say this in these situations. If I was a different person, this would have been the point to say, hang on a minute, don't I get to pick the seats that I want? Also, I can see from the tickets you've given me that those seats are further back, so I can only presume these are more expensive seats. So you've removed my option to have cheaper seats yourself. You haven't given me the option on that one. So what's the crack here then? If I was a different person, which I'm not, I instead walked out of the cinema looking at the tickets, went onto the app to then look and see where in the screen these tickets were, and my suspicion was confirmed. It was the second to back row, which are in the middle expensive seats. I was like, fucking fantastic. Now, like I said at the start of this, I wasn't pissed off with the person. I was pissed off with myself. Also, part of the reason I wanted to pick the seats was I got 4 children and me. I don't want to put 4 children, for want of a better way of putting it, near other people because I don't want other people to be disturbed for any reason. And I can control 3 of the 4 children reasonably well, but not from 5 seats away, if you see what I mean. Put the tickets in my pocket. I get in the car. I'm stood looking at the thing. And what the other thing that's happened is that we have been put on a row that is full. So I'm like, okay, so you've sold us the last 5 tickets from that row, and I'm now on a row that is not only full, the row behind is full as well. Cool, that's exactly what I didn't want. I go back to where Leanne and all the children are, and I'm like, I got absolutely reamed at the cinema. Very quickly explained what happened. I was like, so ultimately it's exactly what I didn't want. It is the epitome of what I didn't want. I went over to put stuff back in my bag, and my middle daughter followed me over, and I turned to her and I said, let me tell you something, darling. When you grow up, make sure to speak up for yourself. Make sure to speak up. If there's something not to your liking, speak up. Because it's an important skill to learn, and it is one that I don't have. And I want you to have that skill because I don't. And it does me an injustice more than anything else. And I was like, why didn't I just say something? Why didn't I just say? Or why, I over-explained what I wanted, but I didn't say, can I have 5 of the cheap seats? Because that makes you sound, for want of a better way of putting it, cheap. So, ended up costing me X amount of money. Ended up being in a position where I didn't want to be. There is a twist to this tale, and the twist goes like this. When we went to the cinema, we went in and sat down, and the seats directly to my left were empty. So I was like, okay, film hasn't started yet, no issues. I'm sat and I'm like, look at how much room we've got. We're sat in these massive seats with, I would say, 6 foot of clearance between our seats and the seats in front. I'm like, for an extra £1, you're getting quite a lot of real estate here. Before the film started, the seats next to us did fill. Didn't hear really a peep out of these people. Unfortunately for me, I do feel that my collection of people were maybe the louder ones in the area. But anyway, we had half term. Half term brings with it lots of activities. I had 4 children for 4 days. And that's not true. I had 4 children for 2 days and 5 children for 1 day. 2 days. Yeah. My eldest had a friend to stay. So, trying to be the cool dad and all that, trying to be I don't mean that in that sense. I mean, trying to be the guy who's like, hey, I've planned for us to do this and to do this and to do this. And we're going to go here and we're going to go there. And there's never going to be a dull minute. Trying to be that guy. I'd planned a series of things. So it was like Thursday to Sunday. So Thursday I was like, we'll do this from this point on. And that's the day. Friday, we're going to get up early. We're going to get out. We're going to get over to go to the other climbing place. Then we're going to go to the cinema in the afternoon. We're going to get back literally for tea, eat tea. You can all watch some movies. Little guys will go to bed. The older ones can stay up. Job done. Saturday, we're up, we're out early. I'll be up even earlier. I'll be getting stuff done. We're out at the door early. We're going to go and do this. Then we're going to do this. By Saturday, I think I would say, I got the fear. And the fear is the opposite of when everyone sat around doing absolutely bugger all. The fear is we're doing too much. I'm making these children do too much stuff. They're going to be exhausted. They're going to be worn out. They're going to be grumpy. They're going to be miserable. They're going to be like, why do we have to do so much stuff? Now, what I will say is this. They're not at that age. But even young children can be in that position of, I mean, I wouldn't mind sitting down for 5 minutes. So by Saturday morning, I was panicking. I was like, well, it's fine. Because what I've said is that by the time we get home from our morning activity, it's a quiet afternoon. There's nothing on the cards. We can just chill out, relax, no worries. So we go home, everybody has lunch. Once lunch is done, I'm like, you guys can disperse, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. In my experience, I have learned that having no plans and leaving the whole, oh, you can do whatever you want now, is the worst possible point in time. 100% of the time. Because ultimately, what it leaves is a load of people who have no idea what to do. What it ends up with is you've got one child who sat playing on the phone, one child who sat playing on a handheld gaming device, one child who's trying to play with another child, but those two children don't want to play the same thing, so it just descends into chaos. And you've got one child whose one objective in life is to trash everything. The entire house from top to bottom. When you put that situation into a confined space, what you end up with is, this was a terrible idea. And I'm like, I could have planned something for this time. I could have said, hey, hey, let's go to the park. Now, I will say this. I did that once before with the same group. And it was a full-on disaster. So, park, maybe not, but I'd have probably found something else. But honestly, the irony was not lost on me for that one. I was just like, why is this the way? Why is this always the way? I hate it. Because I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just like some sort of ghost haunting them all. I'm like, what are you doing? Ah, that's good. I'm going to make a drink. That's it. That's my existence. And in the end, I'm like, right, we need to take your friend home. At least it's something different. So yeah, the irony of not wanting to burn these kids out and then being like, you should probably find something to do. Final thing for the week. Yesterday, I took a collection of children to the park. I often use the phrase a collection of children because it's not always my children involved. And certain situations certain situations have not all of my children. So, for example, yesterday I went to the park with 3 of 4 children. So, 3 or 4 children go to the park. We get to the park. 3 or 4 mixed ages, obviously. So, my middle daughter's like, I'm off on the swing. Fine. Can you push me? Yes. Youngest daughter's like, I'm going to go on the... I always say climbing frame, but it's not a climbing frame. It's like a little wooden structure. It's got steps, it's got ropes, it's got slides, etc. There's a small one, there's a big one. My son loves going on those things. That's what he wants to do with his time. And that's that. One's on a swing, two of them are on a wooden thing, and I'm just in the middle. Then the younger two want to go on the bigger version of the wooden thing they're on, which is a metal version. I'm like, okay, cool. They start going down the slide in new and interesting ways. My son's like, I'm going to go down on my front. And I'm like, please don't. And then he shoots off down the slide on his front. And I'm like, that was kind of cool. At a certain point in time, I was like, my middle daughter said, can I go and climb that tree? Oh. Can you even comprehend the number of alarm bells that went off in my head? Instantly, broken bone, concussion, fractured skull, teeth loss, split lips, literally just being stuck in a tree and me going, well, you're stuck in that tree, that's where you live now. Also, the moment that child goes to that tree, what do we think the other two are going to do? I'm like, I want to say no. Because I've hesitated, my daughter's like, please, I know how to climb it. I've climbed it before. I'm like, I'm looking at it, I was like, it's not that high. So I was like, ooh, I'll do the compromise thing. I was like, you can go and climb that tree to the first branch. She's like, yeah, that's all I wanted to do. I was like, right, fine. So instantly, the others are like, I want to go and climb a tree. I'm like, this was not a good idea. So I'm like, hang on a minute. I'm a child of the 80s. I survived the 1980s, which apparently is a big thing these days. If you live through the 80s and 90s and you're still alive, it's this huge thing. Like, we didn't have to ask permission to climb a tree. It was literally a situation of, you said, I am going to climb that tree. That's if your parent was even there. I'm off to climb that tree. I'll see you later. Or, what did you do while you were out? I climbed a tree. I didn't break any bones. I didn't break a bone until I was in my 40s. I don't remember falling out of any trees. I remember, a scuff or a scrape or whatever. So I was like, hey, let's 1980s up this bitch. I'm going to say, yeah, you can go and climb that tree. I'm going to come with you, but yeah, okay. So I took the smaller two over to the tree. My youngest daughter was like absolutely adamant that she's going to climb this tree in high-heeled shoes. I was like, darling, let's have a think here, shall we? And how about maybe I help you? So I gave her a hand up into the tree. This is the best thing ever. Everybody's in the tree. Best thing ever. My son's like, hey, get me up in that tree. Which I did. One of those things, instantly they're like, bored now? Not bored, but once you've climbed up a tree and sat in it, it's a bit like, well, that was that. So then they're like, oh, look, there's a bush over there that's got like a bit of an inny bit. Now it's a house. Let's go and live in this house. And I'm like, that's fine. My son's like, this is boring. I want to go back on the climbing thing. It's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll take you back. You guys mind the stinging nettles. Yeah. So that's that. Backwards and forwards between the tree and the park. And then I'm like, oh, look at the time. We need to go. So I take everybody out of the park and the two daughters head off because they've got quicker legs than the little guy. My son's like, I'm going to run. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Do you know how many possible things that could go wrong with you running? You could fall, you could trip, you could break a bone, you could chip a tooth, you could send a tooth through your face, you could, concussion, broken skull, etc. And I'm looking at him, and he's running by this point anyway. And he's going, super fast. I can barely keep up. And I was like, do you know something? I don't think I'm aware of you falling over, doing the walking outside or the running outside or whatever. So, yeah, go on. Why don't you have a little run? And that was that. And I was like, we joke about these things now. This is all fun and games. It's all hilariously funny that in the 1980s, you went out the door, leaving the door unlocked. You didn't have a key because you didn't need a key. And you just went. And when the street lights came on, you came home. That was that. And in the 90s, it was slightly different, but, not too much. And obviously we all know, people of my age, we all know what things change those elements, Children getting abducted left, right and centre and all of the terrible things that go with that. And we know why things are the way they are now, and we know why we'd rather our children sat in their bedrooms playing Fortnite with their friends over the internet than actually out in the world. But I will always say this. In the middle of a Sunday morning when the sun is out, we had to put sun cream on to leave the house. We all lathered up in sun cream to go to the park. We were the only people there. And halfway through our time there, what I can presume was a couple of grandparents and a couple of children rocked up. But they came up like half the way through the time we were there and left before we were even close to being ready to leave. Outside of that, those were the only people we saw. So yeah, like I say, let's 1980s up this bitch. TV-wise. Now, TV-wise it's animated, I'm afraid. And I know that's not everybody's jam or bag of jam. I finished Series 2 of Blood of Zeus. Very good series, very enjoyable. I enjoyed both series. It's always the way, isn't it, when you cancel a service and then it's like, oh, I found this thing to watch. So I get it. I was glad that I got both series watched. There was a point where I had been watching. I've been watching the episodes. Like when I was eating my tea or, doing whatever, but I wasn't watching them on the treadmill. But it reached a point where I was like, sorry, I'm just going to stick them on while I'm on the treadmill. So I got through them a lot quicker. Very enjoyable, good series. I very much say this. I thought the second series was going to end in a particular way. And I thought that was going to be the end. And then there was kind of, in a way, a bit of a twist ending. Kind of. In hindsight, I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. kind of doing that, I do wonder what Series 3 will bring, whilst at the same time being like, I don't know if I'll get to see it. So I'm like, It was enjoyable while it lasted, let's say. As I may have mentioned, we went to the cinema. And we went to the cinema to see If. For those of you who don't know, If is Imaginary Friend. It's a Ryan Reynolds film. Basically, it's that. It's a Ryan Reynolds film. John Krasinski of what I believe to be The Office, American Office fame. Now, I haven't and don't have anything to do with the American Office. So for me, John Krasinski is very much, he was Mr. Fantastic for a moment. I watched that 13 hours, was it? Which wasn't brilliant. So for those of you who don't know, If is like an agency for imaginary friends, finding children imaginary friends, or at least that's how it's sold. Excuse me. I'd like to speak to the advertising people on that one, because I feel it's been falsely advertised. But anywho, there's a twist in it. I worked the twist out about 4 minutes into the film, and that was fine for me. I was like, all right, cool. I took 4 children to see it. I kind of expected that they maybe wouldn't have worked the twist out, so that was fine. Should have been a Disney movie for the sheer amount of trauma that was in it. You've got a dead parent and a possibly maybe going to die parent involved in the story, so there's that. And like I say, it was sold in a particular way, but it turned out not to be that. There was a series of questions that I had at various points in the film. There was some very disjointed elements, I would say. There was a point where they go to a different place, and in that place, the place works on the principle that you know the twist. What I would say is, if you don't know the twist, then that doesn't work. And also, there was zero explanation around it. It almost felt like they were like, oh, we're going to do this massive section of this film, but we don't want to have to explain why. CG was very good. The cast list is mental. There's an inside Ryan Reynolds joke if you look at a particular cast member. So that's that, basically. Now then, on the flip side, it was a very good film. I very much enjoyed it. However, I'm going to say this. I was suffering badly with hay fever. I've been really struggling with hay fever over the last couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. I believe that hay fever has ramped up, and I fear my hay fever medication might not be able to keep up at this point, and things are struggling. Because of that, when I went in, my eyes were a bit watery. Now, that is not me trying to cover anything up. That is me saying that the fact that I basically cried through the entire film, a percentage of that is hay fever. Not all of it, though. My word, that film punches you square in the feels throughout. Now, something happened while we were in the cinema, and it was a bit of one of those. I was a bit like, ooh. I took 4 children and 3 of them were mine. Something happens in the film, which I won't spoil, and I went, uh-oh, that's quite emotional, and I'm feeling quite emotional watching it. And then I could hear some sniffing from next to me, and I was like, well, either one of my children has suddenly developed a snotty nose, or... crap. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that one of my children is crying right now. Subject matter was interesting, let's say. So, I'm aware that one of my children has been crying. And I was like, okay, it was very much towards the back end of the film. I knew that we'd be getting out of the cinema soon. All of that. We go to leave the cinema and I'm like, hey, was it a bit upsetting for you? Oh yeah, absolutely. I was crying. I was like, yeah, me too. Then I asked one of my other children, did you have a cry as well? I expected not much. Yeah, I had a cry. My word. I was like, all right, okay. That's 2 out of 3. I was like, did you have a cry as well? Fully expecting the answer to be no. Yeah, I had a cry as well. I'm like, oh, okay. That was unexpected and expected in a weird way. But yeah, I will say this, that film punches you square in the feels. Hard. Very good film, very enjoyable. The CG was very good. Comedy off the charts, very funny. Ryan Reynolds doing what Ryan Reynolds does. If I had to say anything, John Krasinski is in it, and he is certainly the director. I'm not sure if it's also written by him. I would maybe say this in a hushed tone, but John Krasinski seemed to be playing Ryan Reynolds, which felt odd, I would have to say. Outside of that, just, yeah. It did have that whole thing where a British actor, or actress, should we say? I don't know if we're allowed to say that anymore. Was playing an American, which really grates on me. So there was that aspect. And I did have some questions. But what I realised was towards the end that those questions didn't necessarily matter for the content of the film. So yeah. In need of something to watch on Saturday night, whilst a collection of my children were in bed and my eldest and her friend were watching. They watched a movie, and right now I can't tell you what it was. Yeah, don't know. Oh, they watched one of them body swap movies. Yeah, that was it. I think it was a Christmas film, if I'm honest. I needed something to watch, and I'd seen a trailer a while ago for a film called Blue Angels. It's actually a documentary about the Blue Angels, surprisingly enough. For those of you that don't know, the Blue Angels is basically the American version of the Red Arrows. They are US Navy pilots. You have to have basically done a shed load of flight time, etc., to be a Blue Angel. And this documentary followed a year, which was the last year for some of the people in the team, including the boss of the team. So there was also a replacement selection process in there. It is produced by Glenn Powell. I am pretty sure this will have been off the back of his time doing Maverick. And ultimately, I was like, it's going to be like a real life Top Gun / Maverick type thing. And it absolutely was. There's probably a lot to go through and not a lot to go through. It was basically a year, the entire year schedule for the Blue Angels doing their shows. They do some ridiculous number of shows, something like 60-something shows, 66 shows in a year. They're away for the majority of that time from their families and things. You've got to be good to do it. There are a few points where they show just how close those jets are to each other, and it is mental. Like I say, there was parts that they showed just the selection process for new entrants, including the new boss, and wow, just going in the gyro. All three candidates blacked out, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, beautifully shot, beautifully made, very enjoyable. Obviously, I've always been into that sort of thing, so it was very much a thing for me. I had originally intended to watch it with my daughter, but I was like, well, I'll watch it, and if it's worth it, then we can, watch it together at some point. Computer game wise, it's one of those things. I don't play VR when I've got all the children in the house in case of some sort of emergency. So that has limited my VR playing. I have been playing Half-Life Alyx for the bajillionth time on the PC. I've also been playing Crisis Brigade 2 and Drums Rock on standalone Quest. However, like I say, not much of that last week. I have bought and had refunded 2 games in the last week. Both of them were bought in sales. And both of them were refunded for the almost exactly the same reason. One I bought because it looked interesting. It had really good reviews. And I bought it. And it said that it was playable on the Steam Deck. So I was like, cool. Could not find a way to configure the buttons for that game in a way that made it actually work. I tried every possible combination I could think of. But ultimately, at the point in time that it wanted you to deploy to do the mission you had to do, didn't have the button required to deploy. So that was that. I spent an entire evening trying to hit this thing with a hammer, and ultimately I had to give up in the end and just ask for a refund. The money refunded to my Steam wallet. And I was like, right, okay, well, I've got other things on the horizon. I bought another game that was also in a sale. I was like, there we go, that'll be a good one to do. I think it was like 100 gig to download and get it installed. Put it on, and I couldn't get past the first thing. It just kept coming up saying that it didn't have a particular launcher. When I looked into it, apparently it's one of these doesn't work out of the box was referred to a lot. And you have to do a series of different things to massage the game to make it work. When the first thing was like, oh, you need to go into desktop mode on the Steam Deck, I was like, I don't think I want to do that. I did. I gave it a go. I gave it a try. Couldn't find the folder that it wanted me to change. And it was talking about making like changes to the code of the game. And I was like, I'm probably out on that one. Chose the I don't think I can do this, and just went with a refund in the end. As it is, I used the other refunded money to buy a game that went into the sale that they wanted £17 for, and I said, I am not giving you £17 for that game because it's 12 years old. And then I got an email last night saying, hey, that game you were interested in, it's on sale and you can have it for £4. I went, sold to the man in that. I subsequently installed it, downloaded and installed and tested, and it works. So I'm like, winner. Outside of that, cast your mind back to when I was saying that I needed to go to bed earlier, and me saying like the point in time of my day that I'm losing. It's the point in time that I play computer games. So really, I've lost out on a lot of game time. I have played a very small amount of V Rising. I have a big issue with V Rising at the moment, and the issue is, this will sound strange, but the issue is that it feels like the game is just too big. I physically can't keep in my head all the stuff I need to do. And the one thing that really escapes me in that game, I am level 43. To a point, I could tell you categorically, systematically, how I got to level 43. How I get higher, how I get a higher level at this point, I have absolutely no idea. I couldn't tell you in the slightest how I go about getting to a higher level. And I have Googled, and I have YouTubed, and I have prayed to the computer gods to give me some sort of sign. And as yet, that hasn't happened. So, I really want to go back to it. I really want to play it, and I really want to get further with it. The biggest issue I have is there's just so much. There's just so much to it, and you can't keep it all in your head. And I know that I need to go and fight a boss, and I know that the bosses that I've got to fight now are basically the same level as me, which from experience in that game means that I won't be able to beat them. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So there you go. That's it. That's the podcast. That's the week. That is the week that was. Thank you very much, and I will catch you next time. So there we go. What do you think of that? Another one gone. Another one done. Where did they go? Who knows? Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media buttons and an email button, and you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I will see you then.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cookie Cast.